How's it going, guys? Sorry for the long interval between videos. I've had a lot of stuff going on, which some other videos that I've recorded previous to this, I'll put them in with the clips to kind of give y'all a little background what's been going on. My kid, back in September, had been driving the Jeep that we gave her to drive, and she got in an accident. Luckily she was okay, but it totaled the Jeep. I'll have some footage of that, and I'll give y'all a look at what it did to it. So we went out and got her one of these to drive. She's been driving it since, I guess, late September, early October, and now I'm having some issues with it. So well, now the battery light's blinking. I'll have to change the batteries in the camera, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, I'm back. The first issue that came up, we got to noticing when we checked the oil that there was a little bit of oil on the end of the engine here. There's a small plastic plug which goes here at the end of the camshaft, and from what I've looked at on Google and eBay, that seems to be quite a problem. The plug starts drying out and oil starts seeping out around it. So I ordered one, pulled it off, cleaned it real well. It's got an O-ring on there, but a lot of people just tend to try and stick some silicone on it and shove it back in there, which I guess is what the previous owner had done. I did this about a week ago now, and it seems to be holding pretty well, so that took care of that little issue. But the major one that I've been fighting the most, and evidently this seems to be an issue with these as well, is water in the passenger side floorboard. I read up on it. It shows that the AC drain being stopped up is a common thing. It's in the middle of the firewall underneath the car. I climbed up under the car. Sorry, a little cool out here this morning. Blew that out. Hardly any water came out. It looks like somebody's been into it before. We bought this vehicle from a used car lot. So it looks like I'm going to have to take the dash and the heater core assembly out. The water doesn't have any antifreeze in it, but these cars are set up to where the air conditioner compressor runs occasionally to help dehumidify the air even whenever the heat is running. And I think that I've probably got something up under the dash that's probably not stuck together well, and that condensate is finding its way out of the AC chamber, which means I got to take the dash out. Luckily, according to that manual that I showed at the first of the video, it doesn't look like it's extremely difficult. You don't have to remove the entire dash according to that, but we'll see. I'll try to make a video or videos of the process if I don't get too frustrated and start throwing tools across the driveway. But that's kind of what's going on with her. And of course I'm having to try and get it in between her work schedule whenever she's got time for me to work on it. But anyway, that's kind of what's going on with the Honda, and I'll bring you guys back here in just a minute with some other updates. Here's another view currently of the way the Jeep's sitting. The impact occurred on the front wheel and the end of the bumper here. It wadded the frame up pretty bad. To the best measurement I can get, it's shoved the whole thing to the driver's side about 10 inches. It actually broke the frame. Back here, there was already some rust damage where the rear spring hanger for the front end goes, and now that it's broken, it's pretty much totaled. I've had a couple of places look at it, and they said even if it were repaired, they wouldn't trust it. This is kind of a shot down the side of it. You can see how far the fender and everything extends out past the vehicle. Surprisingly enough, the engine still ran. The fan is seized up, and I pulled it up on my car trailer to get it home. I'm trying to find either another Jeep frame or something else in this year range. It's a 2000 that I can take the power plant and the transmission, which was rebuilt about 2 years before the wreck happened, and put it into. The interior and everything's perfectly fine. It really isolated most of the damage to the front end. There was a little bit back here. The vehicle struck them in the front, and it actually spun them around, and they kind of clipped the rear end of it. Sorry for the sun blowing everything out. And then at this rear quarter, when they spun completely around and hit it with the back. thank God there were no serious injuries. There were 4 of them in this vehicle, and all of them were just bumps and bruises, basically because they were all wearing their seat belts. The vehicle that hit them, it did pop their airbags. But like I said, thank God that there was nobody seriously injured, so I'm very thankful for that. But with that unfortunate mishap, that left me without a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and winter was coming. So you guys probably remember the video with the trio of the Geo trackers that my uncle had purchased and we worked on. This was a one that we bought for parts, and of course these 2 were running. That one still is currently running. After the Jeep accident, my uncle graciously agreed to sell me this one to drive. And in mid-February, we were coming up the highway on the interstate, started making a really funny noise, and before I could get stopped, the engine blew up. So luckily I found another one here in town. We purchased it. Didn't have a whole lot of miles on it, but I'm still going through it, changing all the gaskets and stuff. Evidently the guy that this last owner bought the vehicle from, that he pulled the engine from, likes silicone instead of buying gaskets. So I've been going through the entire engine, scraping all that stuff off and replacing it with all the gaskets, checking the torque on the mains, the connecting rods, the pistons, and everything else. I'll show you some video of the carnage of the inside of the engine that came out. It looks like the bottom of the piston separated right where the wrist pin went through it. And it actually blew 2 or 3 holes through the side of the engine block with the connecting rod flopping around in there. It actually threw the wrist pin out of the engine, and I found it on the engine mount over here on the driver's side. And the connecting rod, after it broke that end loose, flopped around in there for a few seconds till it broke the big end loose from the crank, and then it tossed it around inside the block. And it pretty much hand grenaded the whole thing. The only thing that was still usable is the head. So what the plan is, we're going to pull the engine out of that one, which is a 16 valve model. This was an 8 valve. The blocks are identical. The top end of that one, the head was damaged, so we're taking the head off of this old engine, and I'm going to rebuild the engine that's in that, because this one actually has a lot of miles on it as well. So once I get the engine I purchased cleaned up and put back in here, the next one after the YouTube Garage Gang party in May 5th is to pull that engine out, get it rebuilt, and we're going to put it in that one. And then I guess we're going to rebuild that one to keep as a spare. So, been a lot of stuff going on between the switcheroo of the vehicles and everything else. Then the other day, when I dropped the flywheel off at O'Reilly's to get it turned, I was in my pickup truck, and I pulled out of there, and it made kind of a weird noise. I isolated that to the rear end, so I pulled the plug out of it, checked the fluid. It was fine, but it was rather dirty. So I went ahead and replaced it with the correct differential fluid it calls for. It's 80-90 fully synthetic. So I hope I'm not going to have to put a ring and pinion in that thing. So it's just been one thing after the other. One vehicle, fix it, something else happened. Then of course, you know, this is the start of the tourist season. Excuse me. So I've been extremely busy at work trying to get projects completed through the winter time before we get busy. But of course I've got a huge mess out here. I hauled off a bunch of scrap metal, now it's time to do it again. And there comes my assistants for the day. They're going to help me rake leaves and do some other stuff around here, so I'll bring you guys back later. Take care. Okay, mission accomplished for today. They came up and helped me get all the leaves and stuff raked up and put some kind of semblance to order of all this junk. About time for another scrap around here pretty soon. I also had to change the tires on my trailer. We were hauling that tractor that blew the engine back from about 20 miles away, and what happened to it? Oh, here we go. This thing decided to come down the highway that it was going to explode, and needless to say, I didn't have a spare with me at the time, so it got drove on. luckily there was enough rubber that kept it off the road so it didn't damage the wheel, but it pretty well fried that thing, so that's probably about the worst one I've ever seen. Anyway, we got the tires put back on that thing. I had some more mounted, put back on either side. Did a little welding on the little trailer that he had gotten to haul his lawnmower on. People had put this thing together. It looked like they stuck chewing gum to it to weld it together. It was terrible. But anyway, the motor that blew up is right here. This is all that's left of it. We tore it down to take all the other components off to put on the other engine. But here is the piston that came out of the cylinder that was loose. But you can see by looking at it right here that it looks like the skirt came off and the hole where the wrist pin goes separated. And when it did, I can't find the wrist pin right now. It was laying on the side of the engine block on the motor mount outside of this hole right here, which I thought was where it broke at, but come to find out the hole that came out of was actually the one up here on this end next to the crank. I guess that's the number 1. And this is the connecting rod, or what's left of it. It was laying down in the oil pan. The wrist pin came out, so when that end came loose, it started beating and banging around down in there until it finally snapped that other side off. Sorry, not in the camera. This thing is, looks like a hand grenade went off down inside of it. I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but you can see right there it took a pretty hard hit right there on the side of that cylinder wall right up next to the crank. Of course, it chewed the crank up really bad, so I'm sure the crank's probably shot. I don't know, it might be weldable and turned back down. Huge scuff mark right there. It actually broke through in a couple places. So what happened was that connecting rod basically got mangled all the way back through here. It looks like it went through every cylinder because every one of them has got evidence of it hitting every time the crank went around. The other pistons and stuff actually look fairly decent shape, but I'd never trust any of them after that one let go. Oil and everything was fine in it. Oil pressure was fine. It just evidently a catastrophic failure. This engine had like 216,000 miles on it. The pistons on these things aren't very much. They've only got just a little teeny tiny skirt on the edge of them there. I think you can see that there at the bottom of the screen. And that's all that keeps that thing from rocking back and forth. And I'm not sure if the skirt came off of it or the metal was just fatigued around the wrist pin area or what happened, but it pretty much hand grenaded the thing. Pretty much robbed everything off of it I can take off. I am going to go ahead and pull the crank and the connecting rods and stuff out to check to see if they are usable. Parts for these little things are super expensive. I priced one of these engines at AutoZone, I think. It's like $2,300. You can buy a small block Chevrolet cheaper than you can buy one of these. I guess because there's so few of them out there. Used on eBay, $900 to $1,000. I mean, it's crazy what these engines cost. So luckily I got this one for about $400. But like I said, the guy was silicone happy. It was actually pretty greasy when I got it. We went through and cleaned everything up, cleaned the engine block. I, of course, checked the bottom end, checked all the rod bolts. Put a new timing chain in it, new timing chain cover, new water pump. Pretty much everything I could replace on it, all the hoses and everything are getting replaced. All the gaskets on it have gotten replaced. I'm going to wait to put the valve cover, intake, and exhaust on until after we get it dropped down in the vehicle. Also replaced the rear main on it. This is a 5-speed vehicle, so I've got the pilot bearing. This one actually has a bearing in the flywheel instead of a bushing. It sits in that little recess right there up against the crank. Took the flywheel, had it turned, so it's all resurfaced. The clutch hadn't been in the vehicle but about 6 months when I bought it from him, so the clutch is still in really good shape. I'll clean all that up, make sure there's no grease or anything on it. But yeah, that kind of turned into my daily driver, so because it's so good on gas, and then it blew up on me. So I went back to having to drive my truck, and then he lent me his tracker until I can get this thing put together. Exhaust manifolds. The one that was on mine actually had some heat cracks down in the sides of it, so I'm going to do some abrasive blasting on that, and then see if I can't TIG weld that back closed with some rods. I'll try and do a video on that, and we'll see how it turns out. the exhaust manifold that was on the engine's actually in pretty good shape. There's no cracks or anything in it. I'm going to abrasive blast it too, just to get all that schmegma cleaned off. I've already chased all the threads on the connectors and stuff. Surprisingly enough, none of them twisted off when I was taking it out. I don't know if you guys ever use this stuff. They're by no means supporting this channel, but this is some of the best stuff I've ever used. You spray it on there, if you can give it a day and let it work, it's actually amazed me. I've had stuff I thought I was going to have to cut to get off. I sprayed this on there, came back the next day, and it came loose. So if you've never tried it, give it a shot next time if you're trying some penetrating oil. I love this stuff. But anyway, that's kind of got you caught up what's going on around here. Sorry, like I said, for the lack of videos. I just had a lot going on. I wasn't real happy when that thing blew up, so it probably wasn't the best time for me to be making a video. I wasn't real happy, and I kind of hate making videos about negativity, try to be positive about everything. And I guess it's a good thing it happened when it did, because if I'd have been driving to work or something in that thing like 6 o'clock in the morning and it broke down, I'd have had a rough time trying to get that thing put back together. So I'll try to make a few more videos. It'll probably take a while to get this one put up, because I've got a lot of footage that I previously recorded from September till now. So I'll probably either try to put those at the end of the video or maybe stick them in front of it. Just depends on how I can edit it all up. And look forward to seeing any of you fine folks that are coming to the YouTube Garage Gang Bash in May in the land, Daytona. So I guess I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Oh, and I haven't forgotten about my baby over here. The mill kind of took over for a while, and then all this mechanical stuff started blowing up, and I had to start taking care of that, but her time's coming. I know I keep saying that, but it seems like every time I try to work on it, something else blows up and jumps line ahead of her. But she'll have her turn, rest assured, someday. Y'all take care. See you on the next one.